1,000 years ago, the icy winds of the north carried the howls of wolves across frozen seas, while the rest of Europe had no idea a storm was rising. That storm was not just wind and rain. It was the birth of a people whose name would echo through history: the Vikings. These were not merely raiders. They were masters of the sea, fearless explorers and children of myth. From the misty fjords, they set sail in longships that outran the wind itself, east and west, leaving behind legends wherever their prows cut the waves. The Vikings were more than sea robbers. They were bold explorers, gifted craftsmen, and a civilization forged in the fire of their own mythology. Scandinavia's harsh climate bred resilience. Endless winters and short, sharp summers hardened their courage like tempered steel. Every fjord, forest, and frozen lake became part of their character. Survival demanded friendship with the wind and battle with the ice, and so they grew. People of cold and darkness, with wills like swords forged in flame. But survival was never enough. The urge to discover called them beyond every horizon. Young men born in fishing villages learned the language of the waves, reading the wind's direction and the hidden map of stars to become captains of their own destiny. Each longship was more than a vessel. It was a doorway to the unknown. Silver moonlight glinted on the restless ocean as these ships carried not only war but curiosity, trade, and adventure to Europe's shores. Their very name inspired fear. The monasteries of England, the coastal towns of France, and even the warm ports of the Mediterranean whispered of these northerners' daring and ferocity. Yet their story was never only about plunder. They opened trade routes to the east in search of silk and silver and longed to explore new worlds. On winter nights, in halls lit by fire, elder storytellers spoke of Odin's wisdom and Thor's thunderous hammer. These myths were not mere entertainment. They fed the Viking soul with lessons of courage, ambition, and the inevitability of fate. Thus emerged a people forged in the icy breath of the north, destined to become both the most daring sailors and the most feared warriors of their time. But the Viking saga is not merely a tale of blood and blade. It is the story of humanity's unquenchable spirit of adventure. Along the fjords, where wood smoke mixed with the salty scent of the sea, Viking life followed a harsh but steady rhythm. Outsiders knew them as raiders, yet at home, they built an organized and surprisingly productive society. At the heart of each settlement stood the Longhouse, a great timber hall that was both shelter and spiritual center. A single fire burned in the middle, warming the room and becoming the sacred focus of songs, stories, and decisions. Children played, women spun wool, and men planned the next voyage while storms raged outside. Women were far more than keepers of the hearth. They managed farms, tended animals, and controlled winter stores. When husbands sailed for months, wives often governed the village. Archaeological finds of brooches and finely worked belts prove their status and influence. Justice lived in the open-air assemblies called ting. Farmers, traders, and leaders met to settle disputes and make laws. Punishments ranged from fines to exile, showing a sense of fairness rare in medieval Europe. Economy thrived on farming and fishing. Barley, rye, and oats grew in hardy fields. Cattle and sheep supplied meat and hides. Fish and dried meat sustained families through long winters, while fur and felt became valuable trade goods. From distant expeditions, the Vikings brought silver, silk, and spices, adding wealth and variety to village life. Religion infused daily routines. Small household shrines honored the gods, and harvest festivals united the community in song and sacrifice. Children learned early that courage was not only for battle hauling fishing nets at dawn and chopping wood in the cold demanded the same resolve. Today, the remains of these villages' stone foundations and faded carvings still whisper of a people who combined myth with daily struggle and left an unforgettable mark on Europe. Scandinavia's rugged coasts and deep fjords bound the Vikings to the sea. Long winters and thin soil pushed them outward, teaching them the ocean's language, the scent of wind, the rhythm of waves, the secret map of stars. Their unmatched power lay in the engineering of the longship. Long, slender hulls, swift in both deep ocean and shallow river, with dragon-headed prows designed to terrify. Oars and square sails gave them unmatched mobility in any weather, turning them into invisible hunters of the seas. Early raids struck England's east coast and Ireland's green hills. The 793 attack on Lindisfarne Abbey shocked Christian Europe, yet the Vikings sought more than loot. They forged trade routes across the North Sea and Baltic, carrying furs, silver, silk, and spices. To the east, they sailed down Russian rivers to the Black Sea and Constantinople, where the Byzantine emperors employed the feared Varangian Guard. To the west, they went further still. Iceland in the 9th century, then Greenland. Around the year 1000, Leif Erikson reached the coast of North America, Vinland, 5 centuries before Columbus. These journeys stretched Viking imagination and enriched their sagas. Stories of giant whales, raging storms, and sky-piercing icebergs filled the winter halls. Technological genius supported their courage. Flexible planking let ships bend with the waves. Advanced rudders and square sails gave them speed and control. Modern archaeologists still marvel at these feats of design. For the Vikings, the sea was more than a highway. It was a sacred bridge between gods and mortals. In the roar of the waves, they heard Odin's whisper. In the northern sky's blue, they saw the sparks of Thor's hammer. Each voyage sought not only new lands, but a destiny beyond the horizon. When the horns of war echoed through the morning mist, they were more than the signal of a new raid. They were the trembling warning of approaching doom. Vikings entered battle with a strategy as sharp as their blades. Their most feared formation was the shield wall. Shoulder to shoulder, warriors locked their round oak shields into a living fortress. Behind this barrier, spears thrust through the gaps, while the wall itself advanced like a slow, crushing tide. Break the wall, and axes and swords poured through like a deadly flood. Success demanded absolute trust. Each warrior's life depended on the shield of his comrade. Brotherhood was cement and weapon alike. The Viking arsenal was varied. The iconic single-handed battle axe could split armor or timber with equal ease. Wealthy warriors carried double-edged swords, often family heirlooms inscribed with runes and charms for luck and power. The round shield served not only for defense, but for attack used to shove, to strike, to unbalance an enemy. Real Viking helmets were iron and practical, not the horned fantasies of modern art. Chainmail protected the rich. Others relied on thick leather and wool. Psychological warfare was an art. Warriors painted faces with charcoal and lime. Dragon-headed prows loomed from the fog. The sound of war horns chilled coastal villages before the first sword was drawn. Their tactics were flexible. Ambushes in Baltic forests, lightning landings on English shores, river raids deep into Frankish territory. This adaptability made them Europe's most feared raiders, and they fought without fear of death. To fall bravely was to earn a place in Odin's hall, Valhalla, feasting beside the gods. Their enemies did not face mere men, but warriors convinced that death itself was a gateway to eternal honor. Archaeological finds of swords, helmets, and shields remain silent witnesses to a legacy of strategy and discipline, proof that Viking power lay as much in planning as in brute force. In the mist-shrouded forests of the north, among the echoing fjords and the roar of the sea, ran the hidden lifeblood of Viking culture, Norse mythology. These stories were far more than winter night entertainment. They shaped the Viking understanding of courage, fate, and the meaning of life itself. Every voyage, every birth and death, every clash of blades carried the silent echo of these divine tales. At the summit of the pantheon stood Odin, god of wisdom and war. To drink from Mimir's well of knowledge, he gave up one of his eyes, gaining a vision that pierced the deepest mysteries of the world. His single gaze was believed to watch every battlefield and guide every hero toward the great hall of Valhalla. For Vikings, Odin embodied the price of wisdom, sacrifice, and blood in exchange for insight. Thunder rolled in the hands of Thor, the people's champion and protector of farms and families. His mighty hammer, Mjolnir, cracked the sky with every storm, scattering giants and enemies alike. Farmers prayed to him for fertile fields and safe journeys, wearing hammer-shaped amulets as a shield against chaos. Thor's strength represented more than muscle. It was steadfast loyalty to the ordinary folk of the north. Freya, goddess of love, fertility, and war, balanced beauty with ferocity. She chose half of the brave dead to join her in Folkvanger, her field of honor, while the rest feasted with Odin. Legend said her tears turned to amber, a reminder that even sorrow can become something precious. Yet the most dramatic tale was Ragnarok, the doom of the gods. The monstrous wolf Fenrir would break his chains, the world serpent Jormungandr would rise from the sea, and the sky would burn as gods and giants fought their final battle. Odin would fall to Fenrir's jaws. Thor would slay the serpent but die from its venom. After fire consumed the world, a fresh and fertile earth would rise from the sea. For the Vikings, Ragnarok was not merely the end, it was renewal, the eternal cycle of death and rebirth. Myth lived in daily life. Wooden idols stood in every home. Sailors prayed for Odin's favor before a voyage. Warriors called on Thor for courage. Women offered flowers and amber to Freyja at harvest. These rituals bound the community together, reminding every soul that the gods were never far away. Skalds, the poet-singers, carried these sagas from hearth to hearth, turning divine adventures into living memory. Their verses were both entertainment and a guidebook for honor and bravery. Children grew up on these tales, learning that wisdom, courage, and passion were gifts worth every sacrifice. Even today, in the wind-swept north, the echo of those ancient whispers remains. Odin's single eye, Thor's hammer, Freya's amber tears, they still gleam in the stones and skies of Scandinavia. a timeless reminder of a people who believed that the end is only the beginning. By the 9th and 10th centuries, the Vikings stood at the edge of a profound change. For generations, they had sailed beneath the favor of Odin and Thor. But every raid along Europe's coasts brought them face to face with a new and powerful faith: Christianity. Their first encounters were violent. The 793 raid on Lindisfarne Abbey sent shockwaves through the Christian world and stamped the Vikings in chronicles as wolves from the north. Yet these same raids exposed them to monasteries filled with books, learning, and a very different vision of the divine. Trade became the quiet messenger of conversion. Viking merchants carried furs and silver to the Frankish kingdoms, to England, and even to Byzantium. And in return, they encountered Christian priests, art, and scripture. Ideas traveled along with spices and silk. Curiosity slowly grew where once there had only been fear. By the mid-10th century, some rulers saw opportunity in this new faith. Danish King Harald Bluetooth famously proclaimed his people Christian, a political masterstroke that strengthened alliances and secured trade. His gelling stones, carved with both pagan symbols and the Christian cross, stand as a stone record of a nation bridging two worlds. Yet the old gods did not vanish overnight. Pagan festivals blended with Christian holidays. The winter solstice became Christmas. Harvest rites found echoes in church feasts. For decades, families might wear both the hammer of Thor and the Christian cross, hedging their hopes between two heavens. This slow fusion reshaped society. Kings used the church to centralize power. Law codes adopted Christian ideals. Monasteries became centers of literacy and diplomacy. Former raiders became traders, scholars, and builders of wooden stave churches, whose carved dragon heads still grin alongside carved crosses, a visual truce between old faith and new. The Vikings who once terrified Europe now helped knit it together. Yet the whisper of Odin and the rumble of Thor never fully disappeared. Even today, in Scandinavia's villages, church bells ring where rune stones stand, and the past speaks in two voices, one of Christ, one of the old gods. The Viking spirit did not die. It simply learned to live in more than one world. 1,000 years after their sails first darkened Europe's horizon, the Vikings live on not as raiders, but as a symbol of human daring and restless curiosity. Their mark is carved in stone and memory alike. Across Scandinavia, rune stones still rise from quiet hillsides, etched with the names of warriors and the poetry of their deeds. These stones capture both mythic grandeur and everyday pride, each rune a voice from a millennium past. Icelandic sagas, songs of voyages, of Leif Erikson's journey to America, of Thor's thunder and Odin's quest for wisdom remain literary treasures. They keep alive the sound of the skalds who once sang by firelight and remind us that the Viking story is not simply history, but a living epic. In Oslo's Viking Ship Museum, sleek longships stand as silent proof of engineering genius. In Roskilde, modern sailors still test reconstructed longships on the open sea, bridging 1,000 years in a single gust of wind. Modern culture gives the Vikings many faces. Television dramas and video games revel in their fierce battles and horned helmets. Though the horns are a myth, while scholars reveal a more complex truth. Traders, lawmakers, explorers, and innovators. Festivals from Norway to Newfoundland recreate their music, crafts, and feasts, proving that the Viking spirit continues to inspire. Their influence runs deeper than spectacle. The old Ting assemblies those early parliaments echo in today's Scandinavian democracies. Their trade networks once linked Europe to the Islamic world and Byzantium, carrying goods, ideas, and technology across continents. The real power of the Vikings was never just in their swords or their ships, but in their hunger for the unknown. They teach us that courage is the first step toward discovery, and that every horizon hides another story. If this epic journey through the world of the Vikings has sparked your imagination, join us in keeping their legacy alive. Subscribe to the channel, give this video a thumbs up, and share your thoughts in the comments. Which part of the Viking legacy inspires you most in their fearless voyages, their rich mythology, or their early democratic spirit? Your voice keeps the saga alive and helps us continue exploring the wonders of history together.